And I'm a landscape architect and project manager for the Boston Parks Department. And tonight is our second community meeting for Ryan Playground in Dorchester. And I wanted to let all of you know that this meeting is being recorded so that we can post it on our project website. And if you know anybody who wasn't able to make it tonight, hopefully they can go to our project page and click the link and you can see it on YouTube. We're going to be showing you our presentation first tonight, and then at the end of the presentation, we're going to be having more of a conversation. So if you think of any questions that you have during the presentation, you can put them in the Q&A at the bottom of our sort of bottom right of your screen, and we can answer those during our conversation at the end, or you can raise your hand at the end and we will call on you and we'll have a conversation that way. If we could click to the next slide. There we go. So here's a few tips on how to use Zoom webinar. Basically, everybody's looking at the presentation, but we can't see each other, unfortunately. If you are calling in to this meeting, you have to press *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute. And so that is how we're going to have our conversation at the end of our presentation. So going on to the next slide. Here is our agenda for tonight. We've got our project team introduction. Then we're going to go into our project overview. We're going to have the body of our presentation tonight is going to be the existing conditions summary, what we heard back from you guys, basically, from our first meeting, and as well as the results from our first survey that we had. We had a lot of great feedback from that. Then the design team is going to share the concept alternatives, which are 3 different plans where we sort of talk about different options, things that we can include in the eventual design, as well as play activity types. Sorry, I'm getting these things a little bit disorganized here. The community feedback is going to be after that, and then our closing remarks and next steps. So if you please, next slide. So here we are, project team. I'm Bea Chatfield, project manager. Christine Brandeo is here as well. She's our outreach coordinator. And Christine Wilson and Aaron Kramer are here from Copley Wolf Design Group. We're here. Patrick Fandel is also, we're working with him. He is the Office of Neighborhood Services, and he is our ONS representative for the neighborhood. I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but if he is, shout out to Patrick. I also wanted to, if there are any elected officials at this point here, if you want to raise your hand and we can allow you to say a few words of introduction. Okay, I guess we will check in with you later. Perhaps there will be some arriving later on in the evening. So next slide. Okay, so here we are this is our schedule right now. We had our first community meeting in December, and we delayed this meeting, as some of you know, for there was another community meeting that was happening at the same time. So we're hoping that a few of those community members will show up to this one. Here we are, community meeting number 2, where we discuss concept alternatives. And then our final meeting is going to be showing you guys the preferred design, and that's going to be in late April. After we get the go-ahead from you guys saying this is the right direction that we're headed in, we like the design, this seems to address as many sort of questions and interests that the community has, then we go on to develop our construction documents. And in early spring 2022, that's when we plan on starting construction. All of this is with the goal of opening up for summer 2022 so that you guys would be able to use the new spray feature. So we could go to the next slide. So here we have, when we design a park, just a quick overview, we have the City of Boston priorities that we're trying to include. We are also always addressing safety guidelines and regulatory guidelines. This piece tonight, this is our community input. We have a robust community process where we try to include as many people as possible in the community and let us know what you want to see in your park. And then we also have parks and recreation goals. Now, just a few of these different examples of city priorities include expanding walkable access to parks, addressing equity, climate resilience, improving health of communities, and community building. And then some of our parks and recreation goals include making parks accessible and available to all, creating a diverse, balanced, and efficient mix of uses, creating meaningful and inclusive community engagement, designing adaptive and resilient landscapes, and promoting connections through our parks. So if you go on to the next slide. All right, and so now I'm going to hand it off to the design team, and they are going to walk you through the existing condition summary.
Thank you, Bea. So my name is Christine Wilson. I'm here tonight representing Copley Wolf Design Group. We're the landscape architects working with Boston Parks on redesigning the Ryan Playground. We're not just working with Boston Parks, we're working with you as well. So we were here with you all in December, and we're back now. We've developed some alternatives, which we're really excited to share with you and get your feedback on as we move forward in this process. So for those who maybe were not able to attend the first meeting or want a refresher, because it's been a couple months, it was before the holidays that we were here together looking kind of at the existing conditions analysis. So just to refresh ourselves, and maybe if you don't live in the neighborhood, where are we in Boston? So we're down in the northern part of Dorchester in the Columbia Savin Hill neighborhood, just southwest of the JFK Red Line T-stop, just west of the I-93 corridor, which you can see on this map here. Here we've mapped out the other open space areas in the neighborhood, just so we can understand what is in walking distance. You see that half-mile radius, a 10-minute walk-ish, depending on how fast you walk. You can go over from this intersection over to Moakley Park, or Richardson Park Community Playground, all the way down to Downer Ave possibly. So looking at these different open spaces, what's in these other open spaces that might be missing and therefore appropriate for Ryan Playground for the renovation of this playground. So zooming in, looking at this intersection of Dorchester Ave and Harborview Street, we have the condominiums to the north, as well as the gallery space. And then to the east and to the south, we have residential parcels, Dorchester Baptist Church across the street, across Harborview Street, and then the retail commercial spaces across Dorchester Avenue, and we can't forget about the Little House Alternative School up on Cottage. Looking at circulation and access, so how do we get to this site? How do we get into this site? Maybe you drive there and there's street parking. Harborview Street, is one way heading west. There's a blue bike station on Dorchester Avenue, right outside that main entrance. You see the main kind of big gateway that's on Dorchester. So that's this kind of purple box here is this structure. And one thing to note is there's stairs here. There's also stairs at the access point on Harborview Street, and then there's a wide ramp off Harborview Street as well. And so none of these are technically ADA compliant, accessible. So that's a big thing we're looking at with the renovation of this playground, is to create ADA compliant access points so that no matter what direction you're kind of flowing in, if you're in a wheelchair or have a stroller, that you can get up easily into the space. Also looking at the pervious surface, and so this is what I call softscape versus hardscape. So where rainwater can fall down and infiltrate directly into the soil, versus hardscape, asphalt, concrete, where it'll run off. We're looking at maintaining or even increasing that percent of pervious surface, we're just under 40% right now, the existing playground. We're also looking at site lighting, acknowledging, where lights are and the distribution of light throughout the site, so that we can address any, dark spots and really have a meaningful distribution of light throughout the site for safety. We're working with the certified arborists to figure out how the renovation of this playground can enhance the urban forest. The tree canopy, this is what is existing on the site, 28 trees, and the condition varies, and so we're looking at the condition of the trees and what we can do for these trees as part of this redesign. So here's a look at all the elements, the programming elements throughout the site. Right now, if we start up at the top left corner, northwest corner off of Dorchester Avenue, we have a large paving area, the pavement markings, and some game tables. Then we move over, we have the 5 to 12 play structure, and then we have the 3 bay of swings, and then we have the enclosed 2 to 5 play structure area, and there's the sand pit there and some picnic tables. And then we have more pavement with those star dots that connect over, between the play zones across the asphalt to this kind of big circle area with more picnic tables. Right in the middle of the site is the water feature. And one thing, we heard at that first meeting was everyone was talking about wanting to see that like twice as big, how popular that is in the summer. And so, we heard that, and of course, we'd love to hear more from folks who maybe were not at that first meeting about how they feel about these different zones and the features that are in here and the sizes and all of that. Also note that there's a flagpole right near that main entry gateway, as well as a spot for the holiday tree that we saw up in December. So here are photos of all the different pieces I just spoke about. Just give you a minute to soak it in. These photos were from sunny fall day. So just note the water play art tiles, the frog that's outside the 2 to 5, the star dots. These are some of the art pieces that we see in the playground. And we had a survey that was up for a couple weeks after our last meeting. If you were in the playground in December, you probably saw those big hot pink signs with the QR codes and links to the survey. We looked at the results of the survey. We're going to report back on those now, but we specifically asked some questions about those features. A little bit of a lag. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, survey results. So what did we hear? Well, we had a bunch of demographic questions, and so those included, how many children in your household, how often do you visit Ryan Playground? So for those who answered the survey, most of the people actually didn't have children, though we did have some with 1, 2, 3 kids. And then as far as how often they visited, a lot of the 52% was occasionally, and you see 24% was weekly, the blue, that's weekly occasionally, and then daily was, green, 16%. So those folks definitely know this space. It was still great to hear from people who maybe attended the meeting, but who don't, know the playground that well. We really appreciate comments from everyone. So how do you get to Ryan Playground? Most people walk, so makes me think that they are living in the neighborhood. Though some, drive or bike, or we had someone who's never been to the Ryan Playground. So then what brings you there? Meeting people, 13%, water play area, very popular in the summer, we hear. Most people were enjoying open space or there for the play structures. That makes total sense. So that was confirming, what we thought, which is always great. These were the questions about some of the features in the park that we were very interested to hear about. So if you did not have, were not able to participate in the survey and you have some thoughts on, for example, the water play feature or the entry gateway, very helpful for us to hear more tonight. So as far as the water play feature, we want to know, like, should we keep it as is? Should we keep it as is, but do a minor cleanup, or like totally reimagine it? Or do you not really care? So most people, half of the people who participate in the survey said they wanted us to reimagine it. So you'll see that reflected in the alternatives we're presenting tonight. As far as the entry gateway, that was pretty split evenly amongst everyone. So, we're looking at, 2 of 3 options, remove it, you'll see. So if you have any more thoughts on that, again, love to hear it. Art tiles, most people said that they wanted them to be kept at the water play area. As far as a frog sculpture, yes. So maybe we keep it at the playground, maybe we relocate it into a different spot. If you have more information about the art tiles or the frog, the history of those pieces, that would be great to hear. The flagpole, most people said no preference, and then 32% said no. So we just had a very small percentage of people who said yes to keep it. Again, if I'm not understanding correctly, please let me know. But what we're hearing is that flagpoles is not a huge, important element for those in the community. And then finally, do you feel safe at Ryan Playground? And most people said no. So a big part, again, of this project is to create a playground that feels safer. And so we're going to be doing this by not only just improving the lighting at night, but also the visibility into the park and throughout the park. Specific comments, some of them that we heard, I think we captured most of them. If not, let us know. But we heard more trees, elements for all ages. That's important. Inclusivity. Someone's daughter really likes the fish ocean themed art. People would like to see programming such as art in the park or poetry readings, a dog area, basketball hoops, additional climbing elements, monkey bars, a path for small kids to learn how to ride bikes. So we hear you. As far as the dog area, so many people have dogs, and it would be so nice to have more dog spaces, but Boston Parks does not, as part of the playground renovation, and B can speak to this more, but it's not something that will be on part of this specific playground. I don't know if B, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have, I guess, what we look really to create are complementary uses when we renovate our playgrounds. And this is a fairly small area. And so it's not beneficial to dogs to create a small dog run. You end up with a lot of conflict between dogs, and it's not ultimately very beneficial as far as conflict or exercise. You also have the adjacencies of children using a space and dogs using a space. And we really strive to create, dog areas where you have some buffer in between the dog area and the children's area. So for this location, it's unfortunately not appropriate, but we do appreciate hearing that this is desired, because that's definitely something that, it goes into our understanding of the area, and it's possibly something that we would consider in, another park nearby. So thank you for sharing those thoughts with us.
Thank you, B. That was nice, quick, and eloquent, and I think important to note as we move forward. During the meeting, and if you've watched this, the first video played back, you would have heard this, but we heard about the homeless people who take over the park in the summer. about the fact that Dot Art organization uses this space as part of their summer program. We also heard that the game tables are not used for playing games, but they are used for sitting. And then there was just general support for, again, elements for kids of all ages, a space large enough for adult programming, and note that, such as yoga or Zumba, a half-court basketball, a large grassy area, expanded water play, inclusive play. Okay, so all this sounds really awesome, and I want to put it all into this playground. But as being noted, as far as the dogs, we only have space for so much. So part of why we're here with you today is to really vet kind of these different programming options and figure out what makes sense. So we've put together these concepts. We have A, B, and C. And we've started to locate some of this programming so you can understand the scale of it, how large it is, and how we can have a large grassy area, or we could have a half-court basketball, but it's tough to have both. Okay, so for concept A, I'm going to go through first. That's the Great Lawn. And then the concept B is meandering paths, and then concept C is the play loop. And so another thing I should note about these is there's the opportunity to kind of mix and match different attributes of each of these concepts. So what do I mean by kind of the attributes? Well, the key attributes is on concept A, we have a large central lawn with a loop path. We also have the new main entry gateway. We have 3 entrances, and we have connected play areas and separated seating areas, versus on concept B, where we have a meandering central path, a main entry plaza on the corner, small splash pads connected with a path, separated swing area, and then a skateboard area for older children. On concept C, we have a meandering perimeter path, which means it goes kind of on the outside of all the play area and the play spaces. And then this option reuses the existing entrance gateway, and it has a central plaza for tables, and play areas are connected instead of separated. And then there's a half-court basketball for older children. So I'm going to zoom into each to talk a little more about, and so you can kind of see it a little better. Here we go. Okay, so we're zoomed into A. So again, I would love to hear from you tonight, which things you like and which things you don't care for so much, and why, so that we can then kind of go back to the drawing board after this meeting and figure out, okay, how do we take this from A and this from B and this from C, and kind of make it work based on what we heard from you all. So here's that new entrance gateway on the corner of Dorchester Avenue and Harborview Street. And there's also an access point further north on Dorchester, as well as stairs up on Harborview Street. We have a seating area here as well as here. The water play has expanded to be twice as big, right? That's what we heard at the last meeting. We have a large 5 to 12 play area across from it, which flows into a 2 to 5 area, which flows into a swing area, a node for swings. And this kind of graphic here denotes new street trees or trees along that edge, where the existing trees are that kind of darker, more translucent green. We've designated an area for the Christmas tree up in the top left corner. We've also shown the existing mural. I didn't mention that earlier, but there's an existing mural behind that 2 to 5 area, the current 2 to 5 area. So we'd be maintaining that location. So again, this is the Great Lawn area where you could have Zumba or yoga, or throw a frisbee. And that's I think we have some images just to show some of those kind of areas. So a gateway element on the corner could look a little like this. Here's a great lawn, a path where you can ride bikes along around that loop. And then the water play course is this area is large enough where you could have kind of a circuit of water play instead of, you know, just nozzles coming up. That's a different concept. So moving forward, this is B, meandering paths. So unlike the last option, which just had the gateway at the corner, this has a plaza with some seating around it. And I should note that all the access points off, you know, off Dorchester Avenue were accessible. We figured out that they can be accessible, and this as well. Though as it winds up, there'd be a little shortcut for stairs on both of these. So if you wanted to kind of peel off in another direction, the Christmas tree would be located in this kind of meandering, within the meandering path. We had the skate dot to the north. And then the play areas, the 5 to 12 is separated from the 2 to 5, which is separated from the swings. And then the play area, the water play area would be connected by a path, and each of these zones would have some spray nozzles as shown here. So in addition to these plain nozzles, we have photos of that plaza on the corner. We also have some skate photos. So that's the difference between this and the other two, is this has a skateboard node. And to that point, the skateboarding, we learned from B and Boston Parks that this site has been designated as a good spot for like a skate dot, a small area, you know, 2,500 square feet for skateboarding. We've also heard from folks like at the last meeting about basketball though. So do you want skateboarding or do you want basketball? And so this option number C shows basketball half court in the bottom corner. And if half court isn't sufficient, if you really want a full court, you can imagine that would take up a good chunk of the space. So we'll really need to hear, you know, how important is basketball, and kind of feel that out amongst each other. So this final scheme, C, as I mentioned, has the existing structure. We have the new Christmas tree location. We have the meandering path around all the play. And within that, we have the swings, the water play, the 2 to 5, 5 to 12. And then in the central area, we're gonna protect the existing trees and have some seating areas around it. A good place, you know, to have the summer art program, you know, centrally located in the middle of this playground. So again, it's helpful for us to hear how you feel about this existing structure. We could always, you know, maybe look at repurposing, you know, part of it like the sign, or is it really important that we maintain this whole structure as is? We'd love to hear how you feel about that. Central seating plaza, splash pad maybe has painted graphics. Maybe we do painted graphics on the half court basketball. So now that we've gone through the three alternatives, before we move into a discussion about them, I just want to put forth some play activity types in front of you to kind of get the juices flowing, because you know, no matter what scheme we end up with, we're going to want to hit on all the different types of play that there is appropriate for a playground. And that includes climbing, spinning, sliding, etc. And so in achieving kind of the climbing piece, we could have a large structure like shown up on top right, that has slides off of it, or we could have smaller, you know, components, smaller climbing components through the playground. So Again, we can't have it all, so we're trying to hear from you. What do you prefer? The type of climbing piece would you prefer? Is it just kind of a panel as part of a post and platform, more horizontal sculpture, or as I kind of noted before, is a bigger, taller piece? How much climbing do you want at this playground, and what type of climbing? So in addition to climbing, there's sliding, right? So do you want a really tall slide, one big tall slide, or do you want lots of smaller slides? Again, hearing how you feel about sliding for this playground specifically. You know, there might be a playground nearby or another part of Boston that you go visit that has a different slide type. And so what would you like to see here for sliding at Ryan Playground? Swinging. So we'll have taller bucket seats, we'll have regular belt seats, but as far as a special slide, do you want a group dish swing? Do you want something called like a friendship swing? How do you feel about swings? And then spinning and swaying. There's pieces that are that you can bring a wheelchair onto, big, you know, group swaying pieces. And then there's of course little spinners we can include. So how do you feel about spinning and swaying? Again, we're just trying to get a sense from you how you like the distribution of components, big towers or lots of kind of little smaller pieces as we're moving forward. And we're going to come back to you in the final meeting with more questions about this. So this isn't the last opportunity to give us input on play activity types. Ori went through kind of the different types of water play earlier. And then there's sensory play, which is an important piece of inclusive playgrounds, so that there are elements, you know, on the ground level, as well as maybe as part of play structures that everyone can kind of get to. So ones that are more musical, or, you know, the texture, touch. So there's lots of different options. If you have a preference for anything, please let us know. As far as play structures, I already mentioned towers, post and platform. And then other park activities, the bike loop, the walking paths. Do we have skateboarding or basketball? And then seating. Benches, but small tables, larger communal tables. We heard a preference, I think, last meeting for communal tables would be of interest. Any other thoughts? And then finally, colors. Again, just do you have a preference, you know, for more natural colors, bold colors? Is there anything that you would like to see here that we should know? And so that last slide also showed the patterns, you know, dots or leaves or stripes, or, you know, we can do all sorts of fun things. And again, we can talk about it more in the final community meeting as well. So here's a palette of warm colors. Here's a palette of cooler colors. And here's a palette of natural colors. So one of the new survey questions, we have a new survey going out. And one of the questions is warm, cool, natural. And you know, can you rank those for us? If you don't care, that's fine. Totally understand. So now I'm done finally, you know, talking, and it's time to hear from you all. So
if you guys, we have a fair amount of questions that have been submitted, comments to the Q&A, but also the opportunity to, if you want to say your question or comment yourself, you can raise your hand, and Christine Brandeo will unmute you and you can go ahead and talk. I just wanted to see if there are any elected officials here now at this point in the night.
No, there's not.
There aren't. Okay. All right. Well, I forgot to include this before, and I'm sorry for not doing this because it's something that everybody likes to know how many participants are in this meeting. So right now we have a total of 12 of us, including our presenters. So it's a great group of people, and you know, we're always seeking to include more people. So for our third meeting, I hope everyone who's attending this meeting tonight can tell 5 friends, and then remind them the night before as well. So I think I may jump in here and start reading some of the Q&A that has been submitted. Christine, that was a fantastic explanation of all of the different opportunities and constraints that our site gives us. And you guys at this point have some fantastic ideas for what types of programs we can include, what we have heard back from you previously. You know, obviously the people who came to the first meeting may not be the people who are here at our second meeting. I see a couple of names, I think, but you know, so it's what we heard at our first meeting. You have the opportunity, if you disagree with that, share your thoughts. So with that, Des Rowan asks would there be access to water and electricity at the site? I could see a movie night on the Great Lawn, which is an awesome idea. Occasionally, we at the Parks Department have concerns about providing free and open access to electricity because we don't want the park to become, say, like an outlet for people charging up various devices. Not that that's the end of the world, but we just don't want it to be like one of the main reasons people use the park. So we can definitely look into that. And Des, I know I have your contact information, so I can certainly follow up with you after the meeting. Water, yes, we could definitely provide water access because we understand that there is a group that does plantings and maintains some of the plantings on the site. So we would definitely try and make that task more fun and easier, so you don't have to bring in water from elsewhere. Another comment from Des said, is there skateboarding or basketball? Now, if there were skateboarding or basketball, which is a terrible idea, when would they open and close, and would they be locked? So this is a fairly small site. And so I do not foresee having locking gates around anything that we would be installing in this site, because I think it would make it too small, too constrained feeling. And we want these things to be usable for everyone. You know, one of the great things about a basketball court is that you can use it for other activities when people aren't playing basketball. But that is interesting to hear your comment, Des, that you're not into, I can't tell if it's both skateboarding or basketball, or if you just don't like basketball. But perhaps if you want to raise your hand at some point, you could explain that. If you don't, no problem. Christine.
He has his hand raised.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hey, thanks for reading those comments. So yeah, I think I'm less of a basketball fan than I am a skateboard fan. But I think, you know, in general, I'm just worried, you know, thinking about it more, having either of those in this park. I envision this space to be really more designed for the younger kids, and having and I'm not sure if the basketball courts would be like courts designed for you know, young adults versus, you know, maybe a low basket, you know, not to the legal requirements, so like a 5-year-old could reach. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the basketball court design would be, but I would not want to see young adults or even these kids playing basketball, swearing it up, and then skateboarding. And then I could see these skateboarders ruining those lovely benches that were in, you know, they would go outside of the skateboard arena and really start skateboarding along those benches and ruin things after, because I see it all the time downtown. So that's my reservations with the court and the skateboard. If they're more designed for older adults or even younger, I'm sorry, younger adults or high schoolers, I don't think it's a good fit for what I think is more designed for younger kids from 2 to 10 here.
Okay, that's very helpful to hear. With regards to basketball, you know, we could certainly look at that. And I think it's tough with the basketball because if you put a lower hoop in, people are really tempted to dunk on it. And it has a lifespan of about 45 minutes, we found. So the thing with a half court, though, is that it tends to be a much mellower form of basketball that ends up happening there, as opposed to a court with 2 posts, like a full court. So I'm not sure if that would change your mind. Um,
I'm also concerned just about the noise, the bouncing of a basketball, especially if the area can't be secured at night.
sure,
And,
that is significant. Yeah.
neighbors would just lose it. I mean, I don't live next to that, but I can only imagine the frustration, especially you have that court up against a residential property, I think is right there at that gate.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
So
correct.
that would be a tough sell.
Okay, well, that's definitely good to hear that feedback. With regards to the skateboarding, I just want to clarify what Christine was sort of describing initially. Parks and Recreation understands that there are very limited opportunities for skateboarding within the city of Boston. And so we worked with a consultant who is a skateboarder also to go through the parks and indicate which parks were sort of seemed like a decent place as far as their locations relative to public transit, their locations relative in various neighborhoods, trying to get a good distribution. And so they said that Ryan Playground was one site where it might be appropriate. I understand your concern about, yeah, I mean, the skateboarding that occurs in our public spaces does a number on a lot of our furnishings. And so I think what we would end up doing if we were to install skateboarding here would be to really actively encourage skateboarding only in that area by installing skate stoppers on anything that we didn't want to get skateboarded on. And sort of the goal being like, we isolate the skateboarding in that one area. We had heard from some other people that, they had a kid who was 2 and they had a kid who was 10, and there's not really much to do in the playground for that age of, like 10 to 12. And we were thinking that a small skate, it's called a skate dot. There's a skate dot, a skate spot, and larger. We were thinking that a skate dot might be appropriate for that kind of thing. But it's good to hear your response to that. I'm gonna, actually, Christine, are there any other hands raised?
No, there's not.
Okay, so I'm going to continue. Maureen M says, as a community civic leader who helps to organize the tree lighting each year, I like either of the 2 versions with it in the front. So that is great to hear. Although I have to say, I'm going to move my little Q&A window here. We've got it, I mean, the front, that's an interesting, so are you saying concept A and B? Because C is not quite in front. I feel like all 3 of them would be visible by the street, but feel free to either type in more into the Q&A or raise your hand if you want to clarify that. Maureen M also prefers more passive green space instead of skateboarding or basketball, like tables, as I often see families or couples picnicking. This section of Dorchester is densely populated with not a lot of green space, so we prefer more passive space. And of course, the kids' structures for play. Well, that's a great perspective to hear. Obviously, you're in this neighborhood and you see what people use this site for, and I think that definitely seems, great lawn gives lots of opportunities. The thing I think that's great about the great lawn option, concept A, is that you have the site is very effectively divided into sort of 2, where you have active recreation on the right-hand side and more passive, so you can have kids playing while you can have people picnicking on the lawn. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, but obviously this is for you guys to decide.
And B, I would also, I meant to emphasize earlier, and this maybe is obvious to everyone, but as far as green space, that soft scape I was talking about earlier, we move from concept A to B to C. We go from more to kind of less green space. And so I just wanted to, that was an important thing we did with these, 3 alternatives, but I just wanted to, call that out.
Okay, and so Maureen continues to say that the tree in the corner is visible from Dorchester Ave, but more forward location works better for the trolley tour and tree lighting. Okay, that is all very good to understand. Are there any folks with raised hands at this point?
Nope.
Okay. Maureen also continues to say that she supports the flagpole. She likes the flagpole. So that is good to hear because flagpole has not received that much love. I mean, it's one of those things where I think people tend to feel pretty neutral about flagpoles, easy to forget that they're there. So that's good to know that you like it.
And for all three concepts, I should highlight this too, but this little circle on there, and I guess it's right there, that's a flagpole base. So we've worked around the flagpole in all three concepts. Even though I said earlier, I was like, doesn't seem like people really care about the flagpole. We've just worked around it, thinking it was easy to work around.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, flagpoles can be really significant challenges to remove as far as they're a really deep structure. So if we get some people saying they like the flagpole, we're more than happy to let it stay. Maureen also says that I do not know the history, but I believe there used to be courts at this park, I think basketball courts, and abutters may have asked for their removal. There may be notes someone from Parks could research. If there was a choice between the two, I prefer basketball, but I would defer to an abutter. So that is nice to know your perspective on that. I think that is correct. I believe it was more than 15 years ago that situation occurred. And so we're sort of curious, because we heard from our last meeting that people were interested in basketball as a program. We were thinking, perhaps the time is right now. Certain things come into fashion, come into vogue, and then they go away. And sometimes people move away from the neighborhood. So who knows? So, we have let the abutters know about these meetings. And so we hope that they show up, because if they don't want basketball near their house, and we do hear from other people that they do want basketball, this is significant to hear this different opinions. Now I have something here from Mike Skolka. There we go. The green space is probably preferable for the reasons Maureen mentioned. So he thinks A is his favorite. So I just want to thank you, first of all. That is great to hear. I also just want to emphasize that these things should be sort of thought of as kind of like, maybe not puzzle pieces, but kind of a mix and match, right? So if you like significant green space, there are ways that we can do elements from concept B and or concept C in the one that we're showing with the significant green space, which is concept A. So if you like A and everything about it, totally great. But if you just like green space, we could also add elements from the other plants, just so you don't think it's all or nothing here.
Exactly. Like we could have the corner plaza instead of the entry gateway, or we could keep the existing structure. So, or with the water play, which do you like, the spray nozzles, or do you like kind of the more interactive upright pieces? And then as far as the play structures, do you want tall vertical ones, or more horizontal post and platform structures? So yeah, what do you think?
We're also curious about the entrance gateway, because that looks like something, in my mind, it's very large for the site. And
Des has his hand raised again, sorry to interrupt.
Okay, great.
Hey, so I think you were asking a question, right, for feedback? Was that on the water structure types and the playground structure types? Is that right?
Yes, please give us your input. Any
Yeah.
thoughts?
I don't have kids, so I would think that there might be a focus group of what kids like out there. But I guess my only decision would be whatever's safest and whatever's easiest to maintain, so it doesn't get destroyed. I'm not sure if there's history of these structures that are hanging, that kids are jumping on them and they're snapping or something like that. But what I saw down in Moakley there, the water park there, I think is pretty cool. Where I think they have, these upright structures that have water coming down versus it coming up from. But I know over in Dorchester, but the Neponset walkway there, I think they have the water that shoots up from the ground. So I really don't have a preference, but as long as it's safe and can be maintained, And same with the structures for the kids. I'm not sure what they typically like, but whatever is safest.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Des.
And then if we could just make sure that, I know in Billingsfield and West Roxbury, where I grew up, they had a rodent issue with some of these play structures. So just making sure that, there's no hidden boxes or kind of stuff like that where rodents could potentially make home.
That sounds like a nightmare. Rodents in the play structures. Okay. We will definitely vet our play structures for that. I'd never heard of that before. So that's really interesting. Thank you for giving us a heads up on that. I just wanted to also say that Parks Department always vets things for maintainability and safety. So that's great that that is your priority as well. If there's anyone attending tonight who has kids or grandkids or knows some kids who happen to like different play activities, this is the time that we can really explore those types of things as well. What kinds of climbers are fun? What kinds of swings are fun? We always hear that people in playgrounds want swings. There are never enough swings. So if you have any take on that, that's certainly helpful. So I started asking before, but if anybody feels strongly about the entryway that exists there now, the gateway, are there any strong opinions on that? It should be retained or converted. That sparks thought with anyone, let me know. I'm looking at the Q&A. Maureen says, a combination of A and B, plans A and B would be interesting. No opinion other than the color on the play structures, should be whatever is popular with the kids. We are not aware of any issues with gang-related activity in this neighborhood, but that can be an issue in other areas. If you guys are aware of any gang colors that we should not be using at this site, please let us know. We can also run that by other resources that we have as well, and we will, but sometimes it's good to hear from people who live in the area. So. Okay, are there any other raised hands?
Not at this time.
Okay.
So I mentioned, I think when I was talking about concept A, but keeping the existing mural where it is, you'll see in B, we've shifted that up north, so it's adjacent to the water play, and then it's kind of back in its current home on option C. So there's any information anyone can provide about the mural, the frog, the art tiles at the water play, and as B mentioned, that existing structure, we would love to hear it. And if you know of someone who might know more, then please encourage them to either reach out to B, or again, we have our new survey going up where there's opportunity to provide feedback on that, as well as these alternatives and the colors, etc.
Yeah, so I think if we have the last page of this, that shows QR codes, I think, for, okay, no, it's a reminder of our schedule. So here's our schedule again. We will be having construction to occur in 2022. But here is our website, and that is where we're going to update all of our, we'll let you know about public meetings that are being scheduled. We also have the link for the survey is available through our website, or you can just scan the QR code here and take the survey. If you could please forward this along to your friends as well, so we can get as much information as possible. So if we have any other thoughts, there's something at the Q&A. Maureen says, Mike and Des, maybe we could send out an email blast from Civic Association asking about the history of art murals and the frog next meeting. That would be great, Maureen, if you guys wanted to coordinate, and then I think, I know I have Mike and Dez's email, I'm pretty sure. So if you guys want to communicate that back to me, I would really appreciate that.
Des has his hand raised.
Yeah, so so the history of the mural anyways is that was done with the Martin Richard Foundation's One Day. So we took the concept of what's in the current water park there, with they had the tiles of the fish and the frog, and we just brought that over to the mural. And we removed some of those arboretas or whatever they call those green bushes there that were in front of that mural, because that's where the homeless were kind of hiding out, based on feedback we got. And then we painted that mural, bringing that collage of what was in the water structure over to the wall. So that's the genesis of the mural anyways.
So we're
Alright.
thinking, thank you for that background. I think you may have told me some of that information.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were thinking of, obviously we like the mural and it seems like the community likes it as well. So we would be looking to keep it, and possibly reusing those beautiful tiles from around the water spray area, perhaps in a new water spray area in some capacity, or possibly in another, I mean, I guess it wouldn't make sense in another area of the park given that they're aquatic. But yeah, I think we've heard from more people who like these elements rather than people who would like to get rid of them. So as of now, that is the idea, that we will be including them in the park as well in the redesign.
Or is the aquatic theme important to carry out throughout the park? With the redesign, we mentioned possibility of pavement markings like the basketball court, the patterns of the resilient. Should we continue with that theme? In these new spaces we'll be creating. I guess this is something we can talk about at the third meeting. So between now and the end of April, maybe if you think about it, what would you like for the patterning of the rubber in the play areas, or, a pavement marking, around the seating area, for example. We've done dots, we've done the stripes and circles and leaves and, all sorts of things, as you saw in the images earlier. So we can get really creative with what we do with the new rubber in this playground.
So we look forward to hearing your thoughts, and we thank you for coming tonight. And it's 7 o'clock, so we've wrapped this up very succinctly. And yeah, we just thank you guys for your time, and check back in with us, and I will let you all know when our next meeting is scheduled, and we hope to see you then as well.
Thank you. Could I ask just one more question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just so if you remove the big blue structure there at the current entrance that has Ryan's Playground kind of engraved into it at the top, I believe, do you have any recommendations of how the park would actually be advertised as Ryan? Will it just be one of those boring green placards that the city drops up there? Or if we take that structure down, could we get a little bit creative in how to brand the park a little bit?
Absolutely. And I think that Christine, maybe scrolling back, do you know what page that was on, Christine, that showed a couple of different ideas? I think one of the sort of questions in our mind is why is this thing so large? And also one of the challenges with it, it's sort of a positive and a negative, really. It provides shade, but it also ends up being sort of a hangout zone, because it provides that shelter and shade. And so providing more of a gateway, in Christine is showing 2 examples here, something that's a little smaller, a little perhaps more appropriate to the scale of the park, gives you a sense of entrance. And here is, we know this park and what we're talking about here. We would also include one of those boring green signs as well. But, it would be a slightly smaller.
Sure. This looks great. Yeah.
Are these something that you think are
Yeah, I
interesting?
think these look nice. Yeah, as long as they don't get, like I said, I'm all more about making sure things can be maintained and look nice years out. So, but
Absolutely.
yeah, this looks nice.
Okay, that's great feedback. All right, well, I think we're losing a few participants now, so I think that I think we will wrap it up. If anyone else has any further thoughts or responses, please take our survey, please email me.